San Calixto Observatory is a non-profit private scientific institution that belongs to the Society of Jesus, whose main function is to observe the seismic activity in Bolivia and the rest of the world. Besides, it contributes to help generate preventive plans in case of any probable seismic event. Although the observatory was founded in 1913, its history goes all the way back to 1890, when a meteorological observatory was built on San Calixto's school estates by Jesuit priest Ricardo Manzanedo. It was meant to measure the atmospheric pressure, temperature, humidity, speed and direction of the wind, evaporation and pluviometry. And in January 1892, the first meteorological newsletter was presented. It was thanks to a resolution from the International Union of Geodesy and Geophysics carried out in Manchester in 1911, and due to the excellent reputation that the Jesuits had maintained in other observatories around the world, that the Society of Jesus decides to build a seismological observatory in South America. November 13, 1912, is when the Jesuit priest Pierre Descotes arrives to La Paz, who was in charge of the design and construction of the equipment needed to build an observatory. It started working on May 1, 1913, the date that marks the official founding of San Calixto Observatory. Later, with the acquisition of new equipment as astrolabes and telescopes, the observatory was able to observe numerous eclipses and even make a correction in the longitudinal positioning of the whole South American continent by more than 400 meters to the east. The need to compare data with other stations led to the installation of similar equipment at Sagrado Corazón School in the city of Sucre, which also belongs to the Society of Jesus. This station worked until March 27, 1948, when a devastating earthquake of 6.1 on the Richter scale destroyed all the equipment installed at the school. In 1958, the United States Coast and Geodetic Survey recognized the results obtained by the observatory, providing them with an electromagnetic short-period seismograph, which operated at San Calixto's crypt until 1964, starting like that a series of international collaborations with the observatory. In 52 years of continuous work as director of San Calixto Observatory, Father Pierre Descotes was honored many times. The Bolivian government, for example, awarded him the Order of Cóndor de los Andes as Grand Officer. But maybe one of the most important acknowledgments was written in the book Seismicity of the Earth by Benno Gutenberg and Charles Francis Richter in 1949, where the seismic station in La Paz is considered to be the most important in the world. In 1958, Father Descotes had to move to the city of Cochabamba, from where he kept running the observatory and studying the seismograms, until his death in September 1964. Then, Father Ramón Cabré, who served as deputy director since 1958, assumed the directorship, continuing the project he already started in his former position, such as putting into practice the decisions made for the International Geophysics Year, with the installation of 6 seismic stations in 14 towns all around Bolivia. The observatory will continue to grow when in 1965 took charge of an infrasound network, consisting of 2 infrasonic arrays of 4 and 7 stations, and a seismic station which was installed in Peñas with financial aid from the United States Geological Service. Its results were very important for the evaluation of instrumental seismology. In 1965, one of its most important documents was published, Bolivia's Seismic History, which was a combined effort of Fathers Descotes and Cabré. It was made through the revision of historic records that go all the way back to 1582. The year 1973 was also very important for the observatory because its international relations got even stronger when it signed an agreement with the Geophysics Laboratory of France and the subsequent installation of seismic stations and a technical and scientific collaboration. By effectuating the cooperation with the French government in 1975, through the Environmental Analysis and Monitoring Department, the observatory counts up to this day with constant technical and scientific support. In his 29 years as director, Father Cabré not only strengthened the work accomplished by the observatory and its stations, he also fortified international relations with the participation on the Andean Geophysical Program or the establishment of the Regional Seismological Center for South America, based in Lima, of which Father Cabré was its first director. The results obtained were the first seismic regional catalog for South America, the regional map for maximum observed intensities, the regional map of seismicity and large earthquakes, the preliminary neotectonic map, the compilation and interpretation of historical seismicity of the continent, and the analysis of economic impact of earthquakes. In 1988, San Calixto's observatory statute was approved, and thus the first board began its activities. Before Father Cabaret's retirement, the Society of Jesus made a call to all seismologist Jesuits, answering Father William Ott and Dr. Lawrence Drake, staying in charge of the observatory, the latter. One of Father Drake's main goals was to uphold the commitment made by Bolivia in 1996 when it signed an agreement with the Preparatory Commission for the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, in order to support the non-proliferation of nuclear weaponry around the world. In order to do that, 50 primary seismological stations are used, along with 120 auxiliary stations, 11 hydroacoustic stations, 60 infrasound stations, and 18 radionuclide stations. San Calixto Observatory acts as a coordinator of one primary station, one auxiliary station, and one infrasound station. Father Drake also supervised the construction of many other stations more, and continued the investigation of how seismic waves spread across the Andean crust until 2001, when he decided to go back to his homeland, Australia, where he continued his studies in both science and religion for 6 more years. In 2002, Estela Minaya assumed the directorship for the first time. Her first activity was to carry on the negotiations with the Vice Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in order to formalize the observatory's participation in an international state treaty. The same year, the infrasound station located in Peñas is certified internationally, contributing to the international monitoring system, thus demonstrating the responsibility of the observatory in its day-to-day work. Then, in 2004, Bolivia's seismic tectonic map was officially presented, along with an explanatory report, in order to introduce and understand the seismic hazard in the country, as well as its causes and consequences to help prevent situations that could affect the daily life of its citizens. In 2008, Bolivia received a certification for the seismic station in San Ignacio de Velasco to the International Monitoring System. The next year, a new collaboration is signed between the Inter-American Development Bank and the observatory to start a program to strengthen the capacity of seismic hazard and volcanic seism assessment in Bolivia, which served to install 18 new seismic stations throughout the country. New accelerometers were acquired, and experts visited the personnel to train them and strengthen their abilities. These activities led to a first draft of Bolivia's seismic volcanic hazard map. The project, along with its stations, operated from 2010 to 2013. San Calixto Observatory opened up as a space to share seismic information and consultancies for different institutions, in order to train new professionals in many disciplines, such as geology, physics, systems engineering, and electronics. The observatory is also working alongside foreign universities in many different projects. Committed to the future of our country, the observatory is constantly training its technical and scientific personnel. It has been more than 100 years, but still, San Calixto Observatory is focused on the future. We can say that Father Pierre Descotes' desires are the ones that led us to build a significant work and raise it to a height that would honor Bolivia.